Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 25th season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team, Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 24/7 with Fight on State. Between them, they've covered Penn State for more than 80 years. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Anderly Penwell, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we're a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, the power of physical therapy. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime.
Hello and welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime. I'm Anderly Penwell, joined as always by Mark Brennan and Neil Rodell. And this week's special guest is Wally Richardson, a quarterback back in the mid-90s. So guys, unfortunately, it's the first one of the year, coming off a loss against Michigan.
We already apologized to Wally for this.
Yeah, I know, it's tough. It is really tough to always have these conversations afterwards. But yeah, 41-17 in the big house. Not great. We were there. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that was really, a lot of things were really ugly and a lot of things were really difficult, but the fact that they found themselves in that game at halftime, despite being severely outplayed, you know, you were wondering if they were able to come out in the second half, they get a field goal, you're thinking, wow, you know, this thing may be setting up for them to steal a win, and then obviously they just fell completely apart on both sides of the ball. You know, one of the poor performances I could remember, and you know, they've unfortunately had some poor performances, but to be in that position against a team ranked that highly, be fortunate enough by some miracle to be in the game, and then for everything to fall apart, just a disappointing effort by everybody, coaches, players, you name it.
Yeah, I think unfortunately you're talking about one of the most embarrassing performances. It's one thing when I think Penn State fans, you know, they're trying to make a resurgence these last couple years from where they've been, and I think people were encouraged by how they played, came back at Purdue, how they played at Auburn. I think people could have accepted a loss. I don't think they could accept or feel good about where the program is, because you're going to be measured against Ohio State and Michigan. And this was, you know, the lights were on, and I think for the defense to give up 418 yards rushing is just unacceptable, and they're going to have to reevaluate some of their personnel on defense.
Yeah, that 400 was 400 plus was the first time since like 2013, or as far back as the stats I could find. Most points allowed since 2020. It was the fewest points of the year, the fewest plays, the fewest yards of the year. Wally, in terms of, you know, looking at it from the defensive perspective, what went wrong under that side of the ball?
Well, I just think we weren't able to slow down their run game. We didn't challenge J.J. McCarthy to have to throw the ball and beat us that way. So I think with them being in their comfort zone with their running game, they're very confident in that. We didn't slow them down enough and really force them throw the football to beat us, and I think that made a big difference in the game.
So prior to yesterday, no backs had gone over 100 yards. Obviously, 2 went off yesterday quite substantially. Each had 2 touchdowns in Edwards and Corum. What did you think went?
Well, the front 7, it started there. I mean, they were just bursting through, and all of a sudden you're in the secondary. The tackling was very poor. This is the worst you've seen in tackling in a long time. Guys were out of position, and I think they were just overpowered also by Michigan's offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big issues for this team was the fact that it had not played a team with this sort of rushing attack. The only team that was remotely close was Auburn, and their quarterbacks were horrendous in that game. So when you're facing a one-dimensional team, that's one thing. I think Wally made a great point. That J.J. McCarthy, they don't ask him to do a lot, but what he does, he does extremely, extremely well. He kept Penn State honest, and we saw before the season, a lot of people are wondering, what's that linebacker group going to be like? Through 5 games, it looked okay, but now all of a sudden you're facing the 3 top rushing teams in the Big Ten. After this one, Michigan vaulted to the top. You better get that rushing game in order moving forward, or the ground defense in order moving forward.
They looked so flustered on the sideline. It was a dynamic that I had never seen, or this year at least, from Manny's defense. They just looked really skirtish. What does this mean for the defense moving forward to be so solid? Frankly, for the first half, they're fairly solid too, and then it just.
Wally, how do you recover from a loss this decisive? You were on a real good team in '96 that got housed at Ohio State, but came back, finished 11-2. How do you regroup from a loss like this?
Well, I think you just got to make sure that everybody understands what they're doing. You've got a lot of opportunities moving forward this year to right the ship. It's not the end of the world. You get to play again this Saturday in front of a home crowd. So I think everybody just needs to make sure they're doing their job, not trying to do too much, and just go back to the basics. It's not the end of the world. They just have to work hard in practice and make sure that everybody's on the same page moving forward.
I think Wally made a really good point before the show, and I'm sorry, Wally, but we just sit here and kind of chat, and he said, for a player,
best parts of the show.
Yeah,
those are the best conversations
but for a
prior to
player,
the show or during the
it's
break.
kind of easier to flush a blowout loss as opposed to a really tight loss. Now, for fans, it was very difficult, and people are all riled up, and understandably so. But Wally, I mean, from a player's perspective, I could see exactly where you're coming from, because it's like, okay, that was an aberration. Let's get our mind straight.
Right. They were just better than us yesterday, but I think if it was a closer game, it would hurt a lot more from a player, my standpoint as a player, just because you knew you were that close. Yesterday, they just got the best of us, and you just chalk that up to one of those days and move on.
And yet, I thought that the defense hung in there and had some admirable moments, more than a couple. They turned them away in the red zone 3 times, made them sure. I mean, this game could have been a lot worse. Michigan had 9 penalties and settled for 4 short field goals. But still, I thought the defense, now these 2 busted big runs were the backbreakers. But I thought that, for a while, the defense was hanging in there, got worn down. I mean, the offense couldn't stay on the field at all.
Yeah, the time of possession was really warped through that part, and, math there, and bodies get exhausted. But when we come back, we're going to discuss more of the offense, also not the best performance from the Nittany Lions. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Nittany Nation. Good day.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntingdon. And by McAlear's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Well, let's take a look around the Big Ten. Some interesting scores this week. Minnesota falls to number 24, Illinois 26-14. Wisconsin and Michigan State 34-28 in East Lansing in double overtime. Sparty wins that one. Maryland and Indiana. Maryland pulls off the win there, and Purdue beats Nebraska. Also 4 teams in the top 25 this week. Ohio State number 2, Michigan number 4, Penn State drops to 16, and Illinois up to 18 in this one. So into the heart of Big Ten play. It's always a fun time in this conference. But going back to Saturday's game at Michigan, Defense didn't look great. Offense didn't help them out in any way either. They stayed on the field forever, it felt like. Wally, what went wrong in the offensive game? Big question.
I think the big thing is the offense just wasn't able to sustain drives throughout the course of the game, and that put the defense out there for a long time. And you get the 9, 10, 11-play drives where people just running the ball on you. It takes a lot of time because you're engaging with them a lot. It's not so much finesse for you actually having to take off and try to stop the run. So I think the fact that our offense didn't sustain drives and give our defense a break kind of ran its course the second half of the game when it really mattered.
I would like to enter into the record some of the coaching decisions. Number one, I think the offense went down the field in the second half and they got a field goal. When they had a chance on 4th and 6, I would have punted the ball and pinned them in because I think their defense did enough to see if they could hold them in there and be a little more patient. I mean, in some ways you had no business in the game, so I think you wanted to extend the game a little bit more rather than go for it at the 39, and they didn't make it. They had, I think, not a great percentage play, and also some of the play calling. I'm expecting more from Mike Yursich than these fades. When you get down, in the red zone, they settle for a field goal. These are low percentage passes. They're not going to the tight end. I mean, Brenton Strange is John Mackey. I think, sit them in the middle and target them.
Yeah, I want to go back to the quarterbacks if I can. And listen, Sean Clifford now, if you look at his season stats, he's below 60%. And, that just doesn't work in this day and age. I mean, he has got to be more accurate than he's been. Now, was a pass or two dropped? Sure. But I think for them to win that kind of game, you need better play from your quarterback, from a guy who's in his 6th year. You're really relying on him. You saw what he was able to do at Purdue in the clutch. You saw what he's able to do at Auburn. And, against Northwestern, he struggled. And then in this game, he struggled. So I'm not blaming it all on him, but he's been around so long that he's got to make those plays. He's got to complete a higher percentage of his passes.
Was this a situation of Michigan's defense playing that well or Penn State's offense playing that poorly, if we were to kind of divvy up the blame's not exactly the right word, but for all intent and purposes,
that's a good question. I don't think we put the pressure on Michigan's defense that we were capable of. A couple of those plays where it's off just an inch. If we make that play, it keeps a drive going. We keep moving the ball forward and get ourselves in a position to score some points. And I think that's kind of where we failed. The things that we had to do and needed to do at that particular time in the game, we didn't capitalize on it like we needed to keep things moving.
So where are we going with the quarterback? I mean, Clifford is questionable. He did not finish the game. James acknowledged that he was injured.
Did not talk to us afterward either.
Right.
And I'm not being critical, just noting that, because usually he's the first guy out. Yeah, usually he's out there talking to us, and
guys
so that's an
sometimes
occasion.
have ice.
Yeah. Minnesota's quarterback is also injured, so there's a question there. I mean, do you start Aller? I mean, if Clifford is injured at all, this would be the chance to start Aller and see what he can do, right?
What did we think of Aller's performance? It was limited, but we saw him in a big moment.
Yeah, I'll let Wally chime in on that since you actually played as a true freshman.
Well, I've been impressed by his acumen for understanding the offense. He doesn't get rattled back there. If it's a blitz control that he's got to get rid of the ball, Heidi's done that. He's shown that he can do that. So I think he's performed well when he's been asked to step in there. So I think our team is confident in what he can do. And, if he's in there, he's going to be able to run the offense efficiently like you expect him to.
Yeah, he had a big drop. That didn't help. I mean, they weren't going to win. But, he's had a couple big drops, this season of real catchable passes. Hey, when this is a freshman quarterback, you got to help him.
Yeah, and the fact that he went in there, I know he completed 50% of his passes, which, again, there was a key drop in there, but those fans were frothing at the mouth. The defense was getting after it. That was an electric atmosphere. And for him to go in, and he wasn't really bothered by that. And I like the way he got away from the pressure on a couple of those plays. He was not overwhelmed by that moment. He has not been overwhelmed when we've seen him. So I think if he has to play this week, You know,
Start him
maybe,
over Clifford?
Well, if
God
Clifford's
forbid.
banged up, but listen, I mean, you're to the point of this season where decisions are going to have to be made. I don't know that this is necessarily the week, but if he has to play this week, I think he's prepared to go in and get the job done.
I think it's the perfect opportunity this week, really, because you talk about the Wolves. The Wolves are next week. This is a must-win. They can't afford to lose this game because they could be on the verge of losing the season if they do.
Clifford or Allard, if you had to pick?
That's why I don't coach. That's why I don't coach. But I'm confident whoever we get out there is going to be the person that's best able to lead us as we move forward for this week.
All right, so we talked about the loss and a little bit earlier, but regrouping after this loss, what that looks like, we'll discuss that after a quick break.
The NitWits are being brought to you by RE/MAX Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we're a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. And by Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Of course, we were talking about Penn State, Michigan. Unfortunately, that 41-17 loss.
Keep flashing that up there.
Yeah, I know. Penn State was ranked 10. They've since dropped. Michigan is 5, and they have since gone up. McCarthy and Edwards and Corm leading the way for the Wolverines there. But with this loss, quite demonstrative, pretty big loss in quite some time. Us three were in post-game, and we were talking about the player reactions. They were admittedly quite embarrassed. And their reaction was, in my opinion, they just a little shell-shocked, quite subdued. What did you guys think?
Well, sometimes you really find out the true leadership after losses.
Mm-hmm.
And, guys may scatter when they're asked to come out and deal with the media. It's all part of it. We have jobs to report on whether win or lose. But I thought there was a real representation of the defense, particularly Brown, PJ, Sutherland, Jacobs. There were a lot of guys came out and sort of owned it.
Yeah, it's one thing Neil had mentioned earlier. It's an embarrassing performance. PJ Mustipher said that. That's just not us saying that. And I want to be very clear about one thing. When I mentioned that Sean Clifford didn't come out, that guy comes out after losses if he's not banged up. So he is one of those strong leaders. I don't want to imply that's not the case. But they came out and but it's one thing to come out and say all the right things. Now it's important to take care of business in that locker room and in those meeting rooms. Apart from the coaches, I liked what the players were saying, that they have to sit down and talk to the younger players about not letting one win, domino affect you into 2 and 3 and 4, as we've seen the last couple years. So I like the leadership on this team. Okay, it didn't show up in this game, but now we're going to find out if I should really be liking it and see how they respond. I have a pretty good feel that they will respond well.
I also thought their body language actually matched what they were saying. It wasn't they were just giving us, lip service here. I felt like, this is just me speaking on it. I felt like it was genuine. And going back to what you said, Mark, with the losses piling up, under James Franklin, we did some math. They're 14-16 coming off a loss, so not exactly a strong suit in that system. But Wally, with that being said, when you look forward to those next couple games, how do you really package that whole thing and, learn from the past but still take moments from it forward?
I think you just have to really concentrate on doing your job, being prepared, because a team is only as strong as their weakest link. So everybody has to be ready to go when it's time to go. So you want to make sure if you've got a question about something that is being implemented into the game plan for the week, you want to make sure you ask your coach, what am I supposed to be doing on this? Make sure you understand the concept. Make sure that when you're out there on the practice field, you're doing everything to keep your fundamentals tight and keep improving something that you might need to work on. You make sure you do that so that when the next opportunity comes for you to get out there and play another 60 minutes against a quality opponent, that you're ready to go and you're putting your best foot forward.
Well, you would think the whiteout would help, too, in terms of enthusiasm, as long as they can engage the crowd.
Well, maybe the beer sales will help, too.
The other thing, you mentioned about after losses, their record. After James, and James gets very high when they win, and, his teams, after their first loss, They're 1-4. And, you know, I think that's something that really needs to be addressed in addition to how they played after a bye week. So, you know, at Auburn, he's circling the stadium and high-fiving a lot of fans. I think I just would like to see a little bit more to tone possibly that down, and, you know, and hopefully they'll be able to regroup from this loss. Not be too low and maybe not get quite as high over some of the wins.
All right, well, you mentioned whiteout. That's, of course, coming up next week, because then we have to talk about our picks for the upcoming whiteout against Minnesota. Don't go anywhere.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Here's a quick look at the upcoming schedule for the Nittany Lions. Of course, the whiteout against Minnesota this Saturday. Then Ohio State comes to town. They are currently ranked number 2. Then Indiana, and then Maryland. So we call it spooky season because those are some not fun games coming up soon. But any personnel things that stuck out to you guys? Any guys in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Carter played well at linebacker. I think that, you know, Barney continues to punt.
Team MVP, Barney.
Pretty well. Yeah, the pass cover, the pass protection wasn't bad.
Yeah, especially with Landon Tangwell not being able to play. He played every snap against Northwestern. He got banged up in the pregame. They were able to move Hunter Norzad in there. Obviously, the O-line didn't do a great job run blocking, but they did a decent job pass blocking. So if you're looking for silver linings, I guess those are a couple.
And I thought Kevon Lee ran pretty hard. You know, I know Singleton.
You're a big Kevon Lee fan.
Well, he averaged 6 a carry. Okay, he got into the hole quicker, and the other backs, I know Katron Allen scored, but you know they had more opportunities.
Now he's wet blanketing it again.
Yeah, here we go.
Wally, anyone else stick out to you?
I think we got some people back that had been out because of injury, so it was good to see them back in there, and maybe they can get closer to 100%, be, you know, really affect the game in a positive way.
It was also a beautiful Midwest day in Michigan. That was my main positive takeaway from
well,
that.
and who the Nitwit of the Week was
Yeah.
your positive takeaway.
And my other positive takeaway, because last week, I think I have now 3 in a row I win this week. So finally up on the scoreboard there.
Yeah.
That actually is the wrong one. My bad, folks. That's supposed to have 3 for me. So
Yeah, you're lucky because you cheated
know,
on
I
this.
know.
You got like a magic
know.
number already.
I know. I need to get my act together. But for the upcoming Minnesota game, I
You're
think,
first. Go
yeah,
ahead.
moving on. Just pivoting out of that mistake. So I think Penn State's going to win 26-10. I think that, you know, a bit of a rebound, but I don't think that at this point in Big Ten play, you're going to be blowing the doors off of teams anymore.
Yeah, I'll go next. I do think there's good leadership on this team, and you know I think Penn State's going to rebound and play well. I hope Tanner Morgan can play because I really like what he's done there, but it looks like he may not be able to play at the time we tape this. I think that really could help them, but I'm going to go with Penn State bouncing back and winning 24-17.
You know, I think that this is a major challenge for the leadership of the defense to really come back and make a statement, get this season back on track, establish some momentum. Curious going into the Ohio State, curious how the quarterback thing will shake out. They have not been a 40-point type program. I'm going to say Penn State 27 and Minnesota 19.
Wally, what about you?
I'm going to say with it being a whiteout, the crowd being ramped up, that's going to give us a few points, and we'll win 31-21.
Nice.
Whiteouts are always exciting, so can't wait for that one. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next week. Also, don't forget you can get Nittany Nation Overtime on podcast form. Scan that QR code to get everything Nittany Nation Overtime and all things Penn State. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
The NitWits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntingdon. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By RE/MAX Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we're a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, we proudly support Penn State football. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.